Voting for Russia's presidential election gets underway in Moscow on Friday. President Vladimir Putin has appealed to voters, including those in the annexed parts of Ukraine, to be united in determining Russia's future in the presidential elections. Meanwhile, early voting began on Sunday in the 4 regions in eastern Ukraine annexed by Russia in September of 2022. Megumilim has more from Kiev.
Heads into the presidential elections this weekend. Early voting had already begun on Sunday in the occupied regions of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson in eastern Ukraine, reportedly for, quote, security reasons. These 4 regions were annexed by Russia in September of 2022, but is only partially controlled by Moscow, and its claim over these territories has been rejected as illegal by Ukraine and most countries in the United Nations General Assembly. Ukraine has said it will consider Russian votes in these regions as void, and that it will also prosecute observers sent in to monitor the voting process. The Kremlin-backed news agency TASS reported that early voting in some areas close to the front line began even earlier, since February 25th. The Institute of the Study of War said in its assessment that Russian-installed officials in these occupied territories are expected to fabricate a larger voter turnout in an aim to legitimize Russia's control. President Putin's win is pretty much guaranteed, but a high turnout would help the Kremlin's effort to justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There are 3 other candidates on the ballot, but none of the others have posed a real challenge to Putin. Opinion polls show he is widely supported by a majority of Russians. One survey last month reflected a 75% support. His win in the elections would give him another 6 years in office. Megumilim in Kiev reporting for DD India.
Updates now on Russia-Ukraine conflict. French President Emmanuel Macron said Europe should prepare for war if it wants peace, citing Russia as an adversary that would not stop in Ukraine if it defeated Kiev's troops in the 2-year-old conflict.
Il y a 2 ans, nous disions jamais on enverra de chars.
If the war were to spread in Europe, it would be Russia's only choice and responsibility. But to decide, us today, to be weak, to decide today that we would not respond to it, is already to be in defeat. But that I do not want.
Escalade, nous ne sommes pas en guerre contre la Russie.
Meanwhile, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said there would be no end for the joint international and joint European support for Ukraine.
Putin
believes that Ukraine will sooner or later run out of weapons and lose international support. He's completely wrong, because we have staying power and we are not letting up in our joint international and joint European support for Ukraine. And we know that all the different elements are needed for the support of Ukraine.
The Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, said Ukraine is running out of ammunition and NATO members are not doing enough to help Kyiv on Thursday.
There is no imminent military threat against any NATO ally. NATO continues to ensure there is no room for miscalculation in Moscow about our readiness to protect all allies. With more forces, higher readiness and increased defense spending.
Explosions of drones were seen in Kyiv night sky during a Russian attack on the Ukrainian capital early on Friday. The officials in Kyiv said in an apparent attempt to cut people off from information. Russian drones and missiles had struck communications infrastructure in northeastern Ukraine. The overnight attack on Thursday, which involved 36 drones, could indicate another pattern of Russian aerial attacks. Meanwhile, 3 children were killed after Ukraine shelled an apartment building in the Russian-held city of Donetsk. Australia has become the latest country to resume funding to the United Nations' main Palestinian relief agency. Australia had consulted with both UNRWA and other donor countries and was satisfied with the additional safeguards put in place. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong announced that some $3.9 million in paused funding will be released immediately. The resumption came almost after 2 months after it was paused ties over allegations some of the agency's employees participated in the October 7 Hamas terrorist attack. Sweden, Canada and the European Union have resumed funding to some degree. The organization's head said last week he cautiously optimistic other donors would resume funding soon.
The best available current advice from agencies and the Australian government lawyers is that UNRWA is not a terrorist organisation and that existing and additional safeguards sufficiently protect Australian taxpayer funding. Australia has been working with a group of donor countries and with UNRWA on the shared objective of ensuring the integrity of UNRWA's operations, rebuilding confidence, and, so importantly, ensuring aid flows to Gazans in desperate need.
In the latest updates from Israel-Hamas conflict, Hamas has presented a Gaza ceasefire proposal to mediators, which includes a first stage of releasing Israeli women, children, elderly. They have also proposed to release the ill hostages in exchange for the release of 700 to 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. The release would include 100 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences in Israeli prisons and the release of Israeli female recruits. Thousands in Israel took to the streets on Thursday calling for the release of hostages marched from Tel Aviv Square. Protesters carried enlarged images of women taken hostage by Hamas terrorists on October 7th.
We want to achieve talks. We want people, we know that bringing them back alive is by talking, by diplomatic people, by people that are good in negotiating. They should do their job. They should have the chance to do it. The military gave them the chance. Now it's time to give the stage to them.
There is a deal that we can do right now, but it seems like they don't want to do it, and they do everything not to do it. But they've got to do it because they're not going to survive. They're going to come back all dead. I want that Ofer will come back home alive. We've got a family that's waiting for him.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has appointed his longtime economic advisor Mohammad Mustafa to be the next Prime Minister to reform the Palestinian Authority. Mohammad Mustafa is leading business figure in Palestine. His appointment comes after mounting pressure to overhaul and revitalize the governing body of the Palestinian territories and improve its governance in the West Bank, where it is based. Mustafa had helped organize the reconstruction of Gaza following a previous conflict. He replaces former Prime Minister Mohammad Shataya, who along with his government resigned in February. As president, Abbas still remains by far the most powerful figure in the Palestinian Authority. But the appointment of a new government was a demonstration of his willingness to meet international demands for change in the administration. And in a tragic incident, as many as 60 people are feared to have drowned on a vessel carrying migrants across central Mediterranean from Libya to Italy. The central Mediterranean is one of the world's most dangerous sea migration routes. According to the UN Migration Agency, almost 2,500 migrants died or went missing last year and 226 since the start of 2024. And the request of former US President Donald Trump to dismiss a criminal case was denied. The charges against him with illegally holding onto classified documents after leaving the White House. The ruling by US District Judge Eileen Cannon in Florida came just hours after a hearing in which his lawyers argued that the central charge in the case is improperly vague. Cannon was appointed to her post by Trump. She ruled that question warrants serious consideration but should not be decided at this point. Trump has pleaded not guilty to a 40-count indictment that accuses him of illegally taking sensitive government documents with him when he left the White House in 2021. It's one of 4 criminal cases he faces as he tries to win back the White House. Donald Trump is expected to win the Northern Mariana Islands Republican presidential contest on Friday. The 14-island nation will help the former president add to his delegate count ahead of November's presidential election. Lead India's Nick Harper reports.
The Northern Mariana Islands are actually nearer to China than mainland United States, but they are a US territory and therefore holding the Republican Party caucus this Friday, with Donald Trump looking to clinch all 9 of the available delegates that are up for grabs. Trump, of course, is now the only contender in the Republican primary race, and earlier this week won enough delegates in the state primaries to become the party's nominee. It means he'll go up against the incumbent Democratic President Joe Biden in November's election. Biden himself won the Northern Mariana Islands Democratic primary on Tuesday. Around 55,000 people live on the islands in the Pacific Ocean, which formerly became a US territory back in 1986. The southernmost island of the territory, Guam, an important US military base, holds its Republican caucus on Saturday. However, while the territory can vote for presidential nominees in the primary contests, the residents there cannot vote in the general election come November. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And while visiting Gloucester Rugby Club on Thursday, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said his Conservative Party is united in making sure the UK won't have a Labour government. The British PM is under pressure from his own party as some members want to have a new leader before general elections later this year. He acknowledged that the country has been through a difficult couple of years, but said Britain is now going in the right direction.
I think actually the party is united in wanting to make sure that we don't have the Labour government because our plan is the right one for the country. And actually, we've been through a difficult couple of years. Of course, that's the case, whether it's with COVID, recovering from that, the impact of the war in Ukraine. But at the start of this year, we really have turned a corner and we're now pointing in the right direction.
Senegalese opposition firebrand Ousmane Sonko and the presidential candidate he's backing in the March 24 election, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, were released from prison on Thursday. Their release has been expected after Parliament passed an amnesty law on March 6 as the authorities sought to ease tensions following their thwarted bid to postpone the vote by 10 months. Thousands of supporters marched in Dakar, the capital, to celebrate the news, chanting Sonko's name on the gridlocked street where he lives. Some lit flares, danced or tooted their motorbike and car horns. And in Haiti, violence appeared to flare up again after a brief lull following Prime Minister Ariel Henry's announcement of resignation on Monday. A powerful gang leader has issued a threatening message aimed at political leaders who would participate in a planned transition council. Meanwhile, a fire broke out at the main penitentiary, emptied of prisoners by armed men earlier this month. Thick black smoke earlier billowed out from the facility, but the fire appeared to be out by Thursday afternoon. National Police Chief's house had also been set on fire on Thursday. Heavily armed gangs have taken over much of the capital and rights groups have reported widespread killings, kidnappings and sexual violence. Colorado on Thursday witnessed what may be the U.S. state's biggest snowstorm of the season. The heavy winter storm dumped several feet of snow, knocking out power, closing roads and causing flight delays. Several ski slopes were closed because of the weather, and Denver International Airport cancelled over 800 flights and delayed over 300. The snowfall rates are expected to ease from Friday. Well, let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Michigan jury convicted the father of a teenager who fatally shot 4 classmates at a high school in Michigan of manslaughter. Both father and mother to be sentenced on 9th of April over manslaughter penalty of up to 15 years in prison. The US, a country with persistent gun violence, has experienced a series of school shootings over the years. A Turkish aerobatic jet crashed on Thursday due to an unknown cause in Konya. And aviation personnel working on repairs on the tarmac died as a result of the crash. The Turkish Defense Ministry said the pilot, who had ejected before the crash, survived and was taken to hospital immediately. The Concorde supersonic aircraft returned to its home at the Intrepid Museum in Manhattan after repair and restoration. The Concorde has been housed at the Intrepid Museum since 2003. The Concorde was a supersonic airplane built in the 1960s as part of a joint venture between the UK and France. The Concorde was the first commercial aircraft of its kind. Well, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. India issues joint statement with other countries in United Nations General Assembly to promote safe, secure and trustworthy AI systems. US President opposes the proposed merger of United States Steel with Japan's Nippon Steel. Indian shuttler Lakshya Sen will play the quarter-finals at the England Open Championship today.
Why have the big five powers of the United Nations Security Council seen no change in 8 decades? Who is stalling reform of the world body, and for how long can we wait? Are we truly alone in the universe, or are there aliens who keep playing hide and seek with us? Watch Connecting the Dots to get the full picture every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. Japan's Yasukuni Shrine has picked Umio Otsuka, a former military commander, as its chief priest. The former Maritime Self-Defense Force commander and a one-time ambassador to Djibouti confirmed his appointment, which marks the first time since 1978 for an ex-military official to assume the post. Visits to the Yasukuni Shrine by senior Japanese political figures have drawn criticism from other Asian nations that see it as a symbol of Japan's wartime aggression. Conservatives, however, assert that the shrine is not dedicated to those blamed for waging war on Japan's neighbors. India, along with United States and 53 other members, have proposed a first United Nations resolution on artificial intelligence aimed at ensuring the new technology is safe, secure and trustworthy, and that all countries, especially those in the developing world, have equal access. The resolution calls on member states to promote safe, secure and trustworthy AI systems to address the world's greatest challenges, including those related to poverty elimination, global health, food security, climate, energy and education. Members resolved to bridge the artificial intelligence and other digital divides between and within countries through capacity building, increasing digital literacy and other actions. Statement establishes a shared vision that AI systems should be human-centric, reliable, explainable, ethical, inclusive, privacy-preserving and responsible, with a sustainable development orientation and in full respect, promotion and protection of human rights and international law. And it affirms principles that will help make the vision a reality. This resolution is a historic step forward in fostering safe, secure and trustworthy AI worldwide. Bhutanese Prime Minister sharing top gaze on a 5-day official visit to India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Prime Minister of Bhutan will meet President Draupadi Murmu today and visit Rajghat in the national capital. Earlier on Thursday, Bhutanese Prime Minister Shering Tobgay met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi and accepted his invitation to visit Bhutan next week. The visit of Bhutanese Prime Minister will provide an opportunity to two sides to review the partnership progress. This is his first overseas visit after assuming office in January 2024. Taking on social media platform X, PM Modi wrote, and I quote, "Glad to meet my friend and PM of Bhutan Shering Tobgay on his first overseas visit in this term. Had productive discussions encompassing various aspects of our unique and special partnership. I convey heartfelt thanks to His Majesty, the King of Bhutan and Bhutan PM for inviting me to visit Bhutan next week." Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is addressing a public meeting in Kanyakumari in Tamil Nadu. He will also visit southern state of Kerala and Telangana ahead of the upcoming Lok Sabha elections. Later in the day, he will visit Kerala, where he will address a public meeting at Pathanamthitta. The Prime Minister will also hold a roadshow in Telangana's Malkajgiri. The newly appointed election commissioners Gyanesh Kumar and Sukhbir Singh Sandhu charged the office on Friday. They were appointed as election commissioners by the selection panel led by Prime Minister and comprising the leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha and a union minister picks the final appointees. The two vacancies were created in the Election Commission after the retirement of Anup Chandra Pandey in February and the resignation of Arun Goel recently, days ahead of Lok Sabha polls 2024. The new commissioners have joined their offices to help the poll body conduct these polls. Gyanesh Kumar is a 1988 batch IAS officer from the Kerala cadre. He retired as a secretary in the Ministry of Cooperation and also served as the secretary in the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs previously. Sukhbir Singh Sandhu is also 1998 batch IAS officer from Uttarakhand cadre. Sandhu has served as a chief secretary of Uttarakhand in 2021. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated Nausena Bhavan, the new Indian Navy headquarters building in New Delhi on Friday. The ceremony also saw the presence of India's Chief of the Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral R. Hari Kumar, and Chairman of Defence Research and Development Organisation, Dr. Sameer V. Kamath. Let's take a look at other stories making news today. Supreme Court of India has ordered State Bank of India to publish electoral bonds numbers which reveal the link between donors and political parties. A 5-judge constitution bench led by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud reconvened today to hear the application filed by the Election Commission. As per March 11, 2024 order, the Election Commission on Thursday uploaded the data on electoral bonds furnished it to by the SBI. The next hearing will take place on Monday. An earthquake of magnitude 3.9 on the Richter scale occurred near Ukhrul in the northeastern state of Manipur, the National Center for Seismology said on Friday. US President Joe Biden is signaling his opposition to Nippon Steel's $14 billion acquisition of US Steel. It comes after Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump said he would block the deal if he becomes the president. Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Reports are that there is heavy lobbying that has been taking place for months now on Capitol Hill. The US Steelworkers Union is heavily against the acquisition, as are some lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, who have been urging the president, according to reports, to spike the deal using national security powers. And Cleveland-Cliffs, a competitor for the acquisition of US Steel, has also reportedly been lobbying on Capitol Hill as well. But analysts are saying that if this deal goes ahead, if the acquisition happens, it may actually be a good thing for US Steel. The injection of capital from Japan and the strong automotive industry here, which works very closely alongside Nippon Steel, into US Steel may be good for the workers, may be good for the unions, and may be good for the manufacturing sector in the US. Analysts also are saying that scrapping it based on national security grounds may also scare away other foreign investors. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
The revised petrol and diesel prices across India are effective from Friday, a day after the oil marketing companies revised them. A reduction in petrol and diesel prices will boost consumer spending and reduce operating costs for over 58 lakh heavy goods vehicles running on diesel, 6 crore cars and 27 crore two-wheelers. Reduced petrol and diesel prices will benefit the citizens through more disposable income, control over inflation, and increased consumer confidence and spending. It will also be a boost for tourism and travel industries, reduced expenses for businesses dependent on transportation, and enhanced profitability for logistics, manufacturing, and retail sectors. Indian shuttler Lakshya Sen will take on former champion Lee Zijia on Friday in the All England Open Championship. Earlier on Thursday, Sen came off from behind the third game to beat Danish world number 4 Anders Antonsen 24-22, 11-21, 21-14. This was the first win for Lakshya against Antonsen in their last 4 matches. Lakshya is leading 3-1 against the Malaysian shuttler. Meanwhile, world number 1 duo Satvik Sairaj and Chirag Shetty lost to former All England champions M. Fikri and Maulana 16-21, 15-21 in the second round. In women's singles, 2-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu suffered a straight games defeat against South Korea's On Se-young. In women's doubles, Tanisha Crasto and Ashwini Ponappa also went out in the round of 16 after taking the opening game against Zhang and Zheng of China. This leaves Lakshya Sen to be the only Indian contention in the quarterfinal stage, as PV Sindhu, Satvik Chirag, Ashwini, Tanisha made their way out. Australian researchers have found coral bleaching around 6 islands in the far northern parts of the Great Barrier Reef. The abrupt changes signal greater dangers for the reef and the possibility of crossing points of no return in the climate system. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.